What is going on, Internet? Eric Banholz back again with another e-commerce conversations. I hope all is well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Andrei. What's up, man?
Hello, Eric. Thanks for having me here today.
Pleasure's all mine. We met at a conference here in Austin a couple of weeks ago, and you blew my mind with your abilities. And just had to bring you on the show. Excited for this podcast and excited to share what you've learned over the years. But for those who are not familiar with your game, why don't you tell our listeners who the heck you are and what the heck you do?
Sure. So my name is Andrei Rebrov. I spent the last 12 years building and scaling an amazing company called Scentbird, the perfume subscription. So that's one of the many things that we have in common, the affection for smelling great and fragrance industry in general. And I've been a CTO there, so I did a lot of engineering myself. So I coded the website, the back office system. So can talk hours about online payments, web warehouse operations, things like that. But recently couldn't resist to join an AI movement. So I left Scentbird earlier this year in March, and now working on a company called Fincy, which helps subscription companies to identify, activate, and retain the most profitable customers. And in general, love to cook, love to exercise, love to have an amazing conversations.
So Scentbird, surprisingly, I had not heard of until I met you, which is crazy to think. Like, I don't know how public you guys are with some of the numbers and what you've built, but in regards of the size of the number of subscribers you have, it's a lot. It's a
I can officially say we passed 1 million mark
okay.
at the end of the last year. And we've been doing this since 2014. August 2014 is when we started our subscription officially. So it's 11 years in making at this point.
And not only that, you didn't build it on Shopify and use a plugin. Like, you're a madman.
Kind of. When we started, Shopify wasn't that power machine yet. It was still an era of Magento, pretty much. And it was also an era of different subscription boxes. So Ipsy, Birchbox, I believe Red Runaway was around the corner as well. Warby Parker actually inspired us to start this business because the first idea was try before you buy for fragrances. And we've been talking to people, hey guys, how we should do this, what's the best approach? And people told us, hey, Magento is great, but you need to essentially rewrite a lot of it. So why don't you just start from scratch? And since I was an engineer, obviously every engineer wants to build things, not necessarily use something off the shelf. So we built things. We built a lot of things over the years. And I'm pretty proud of what it became over the years.
Yeah, I mean, the business that you built is really unique because you kind of have anybody who goes to Scentbird, you can tell like you have almost your own unique product that you're tying in with other brands. So you're sampling. I guess, do you call that the sampling? A sampling subscription? It's kind of like borderline because it's like
it's a borderline, yes. Speaking of on sampling note, when we started, as I mentioned, was try before you buy. So we were sending up to 3 perfume bottles with actual samples that we were getting from Sephora. And since we were getting a lot of them, at some point, a few Sephoras here on Manhattan stopped letting us in, saying, hey guys, like, you're doing something shady, like we are not letting you in. So we had to find the Sephoras. But what Scentbird is setting is this monthly supply of perfume. So it's 152 sprays, more or less enough to last a month. Obviously depends on how much you use. Like sometimes like in the gym, I see people spraying them all over themselves. So maybe to last them for 2 weeks max, but in general, it should last one month.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the perfect subscription model. And, like I would imagine getting to the over 1 million subscribers, you always hear about like battling churn, whether it be like software or, physical goods. Like walk me through kind of like those hurdles that you hit as you scaled up and how, I mean, I think about a 1 million subscribers. If you're losing, what, 3% or 5% a month, you've got to pull in. I mean, I don't know the top of my head. What is that? 50,000 new customers every month just to break even.
Yes, that's one thing that people not necessarily understand right away about subscriptions, that in order to like, I think it's from Alice in Wonderland, like you have to run in order to remain on the same place. So like, you constantly have to bring in new customers in order to remain on the same level of active subscribers. So if you want to grow more, then you need to do much more than that. And I would say it's not only about fighting churn, because that's the usual setup of most of the subscription companies. They have people responsible for acquisition, they have people responsible for retention, and that's where the problem starts, because you need to bring people who will remain with you, who will stay active with you, even if it means increasing your cost of acquisition eventually, because at the end of the day, it's LTV to CAC, not just CAC, not just cost of acquisition. So it's a bit tricky math, and that required us to work quite quite in unison, like, meaning the acquisition team, the retention team, the website team, operations team, because a lot of things are unique. If let's say if you're doing great on acquisition side because we developed new cool feature, then it will obviously increase hurdle for operations team, who now have to fulfill much more orders, or they have more complicated orders to fulfill. And like we are doing the fulfillment as well. It's like a fully vertically integrated machine. So you have to work as one organism, otherwise something will break pretty fast.
Yeah, and I would imagine, all that complexity also might be limiting towards, launching new channels or new products or unique experiences, right?
Yes. We have to be very creative around new channels. So, for example, one of the most not interesting channels, but one of the most performing channels these days is Shopify. Sorry, not Shopify. TikTok and TikTok shops. Obviously, TikTok shop is not giving anyone just an API. Hey guys, feel free to connect your store to ours. You have to go usually through Shopify, because they are the official partner. So we had to come up with the idea, okay, we'll create a faceless Shopify store. We'll connect a TikTok account to it. Then, like, through this faceless Shopify store, we'll send orders into our system. So that's how we'll hook up people for some kind of bundle or test set or something like this. And then eventually, once they get a box, then they will be exposed to Scentbird experience, and then we'll convert them. So yes, in many cases, we had to be very creative.
And like in that case with TikTok shops, you would have to basically sign them up as a customer twice then.
Exactly. So, and
So
like this is a nice example when you also have to invest into physical aspect of your product, into the packaging. So people will scan some kind of QR code, they'll have some booklet that tells what's going on, what they can get, things like that.
yeah, how confident do you get with the numbers, or maybe the better question is at what scale do you feel like what your customer lifetime value is, what your churn rate is? Because I feel like I'll speak on behalf of myself, my own company is like if we get an influx of, paid customers from Meta, like
Hmm.
the AOV is going to be lower and maybe the repeat rate is going to be lower. Whereas if we got a bunch from our organic channels like YouTube, then higher AOV, longer customer base. So it's like because we're so small, it's hard for us to kind of really trust those numbers I guess a longer term.
Yeah, the analytics is one of the hardest aspect of this, and that's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing right now with Finzi. Like, we had to invest quite early into the analytics, and like, since day one it was complicated, but that was a necessity, because we had to analyze all the customers based on the channel they came from, because each channel has its own lifetime value, it has its own payback period, its own cost of acquisition. So that's one. Second, in many cases, it was what did the people buy through these channels, and like how to deal with this. So we had, and Sembers has a pretty powerful analytical team. We built all the systems ourselves, because There are two types of LTV that we need to keep in mind. One is the historic, like the traditional LTV, which is based on the historical numbers. The only problem, this data is lagging. Like you cannot tell, or like you cannot tell until, 6 months, 7 months in the future, is what you're doing right now working for you or not? And you have to have this information because you constantly test new creatives and you constantly do all kind of A/B tests on your website. So for us, we had to build models that after 1 month were able to tell us predictive LTV. Like, are we doing fine or not? Because, like, I'll give you an example with conversion rate, for example. So we constantly do a ton of Scentbird constantly does a lot of tests on the website to increase conversions. And sometimes the immediate result might be weird. For example, not weird, like they can be dissatisfying for people who watch the experiment. For example, they can see that the um, conversion rate is lower. A good example here is when we were testing 2 month, two product a month plan. So yes, obviously it's more expensive plan. It has more product. People have to commit to more. So the conversion rate was lower. But what we figured out after 1 month, the LTV was significantly higher. So we only were able to do this because we had predictive LTV. But also the complication of that is two product months is very different from a warehouse perspective, how they need to organize their process. So if we want to push this, they need to restructure how they do operation, how they do pick and pack in order to make it effective from profit perspective too. So one metric actually dictates how the entire organization should work out. So analytics is critical. That's why we've been investing this in it early in days and still spend a lot of time in it.
Yeah, and let's say like that option going from a one product versus two product kit.
Mhm.
Do you have to like backwards or do you grandfather in, the customers? Let's say you shifted from one package to two package as a subscription. Like, do they all move to that new program and you have to resell them or?
We grandfather people. Whatever they subscribe to, we grandfather them because yes, there are people who stay longer than a year. Like at some point when we were celebrating 10-year anniversary, invited people who have been with us for like 7 or 8 years. But most of the people, well, not most of the people, but a lot of people will be lost in 12 months. So grandfathering works fine.
Yeah. Okay. And it doesn't throw too much operational headaches and they just have to deal
Exactly.
with it.
Yep.
Okay. So, walk me through, with Fincy, clearly, subscriptions. How do you, plug into other subscription companies and bring that knowledge
Mhm.
and that insight to, large subscription companies and kind of what is that ideal company size going to be where it's going to start making sense working
Mhm.
with this type of analytics?
I would say there is like for us it's like it's not about the ideal company size, is that the company of different sizes have different needs based on their growth. With subscription, there are a couple of things aside of predictive LTV that change the way how you operate. I would say one of the most critical one is how does it affect your cash flow, and this is super critical when you're early in days. What do I mean by that? Every product, every SKU, every inventory item has its own lead time. So let's say if you purchase something today, it will only arrive in 3 months. What does it mean in case of subscription companies, especially subscription companies who do curated boxes or something like this, who cannot stockpile products? It means that they need to know right now how many customers they'll have in 3 months from now on, keeping in mind that they have churn, keeping in mind they have certain cash constraints, how much they can spend on inventory, but also keeping in mind the fact that they want to grow, so they want to increase the marketing spend. And marketing spend means new customers. And it's very complicated math equation. And that's one thing that we saw for early companies, let's say companies between 1 and 10 million, how to get to a more confident situation from cash perspective. From 10 to, and like this is usually a situation when companies being run mostly by the owner of the company, the founder of the company, maybe a couple of other folks. Then between 10 and 50, there is usually someone responsible for the growth, someone like head of growth or VP of growth, the title might vary. But then the question is, we want to go deeper into what we are doing. We want to better understand different segments, because usually at this point you have different segments of customers. These are not your early adopters. And this is where we get more into segmentations. And like two key segments that you have here, they are completely opposite. On one side of the equation, you need to do winbacks, so people who canceled your subscription. And unfortunately, the industry usually treat this pretty poorly, meaning you cancel your subscription, next day you get a generic email saying, hey, please come back and resubscribe to our service. Here's your $5 coupon code. Why don't like this approach? Because again, it's very generic and it doesn't take consideration. What if you were a very loyal customers and you cancel because now you are moving to a new place, it's not the right time. It's not the right idea to contact you the next day. Or if it was a bargain hunter, maybe they're not your customers at all. You don't have to bother to contact them. Like, just remove them from your Klaviyo. Don't pay for them to Klaviyo anymore. So that's one example. On the other side of spectrum, you have VIP customers. I remember from early days at Scentbird, I think it was like months 2 or 3 of us doing the subscription thing. We got an email from the lady who said, hey guys, I have a $500 monthly budget. How can I spend it with your organization? And we were like, we need to come up with a way so people can get to a website and purchase as many things as they can outside of just subscription. And like, there are usually people, maybe like 10%, maybe 5% of people who spend significantly more. And that's usually the case that drives revenue for SaaS companies. Think of Slack or Zoom. Like, Slack or Zoom are free products. So this free tier is being paid by 10% of customers who are enterprise customers and pay for everything. Same for physical subscription. You have this group of people who are ready to spend more. You need to identify them. You need to figure out what's their profile. Maybe there are several profiles. Ideally, you need to interview them and then create some product for them. So, and this is another area that we help to people between 10 and 50. After 50, then it becomes the main situation for this organization is to ensure there are no surprises, meaning like everything works as expected. If something goes wrong, people are aware of this. People don't do stupid things like they misconfigure coupons that only live for 1 week instead of 1 month, things like that. So, and this is like, I would say this is the case for companies between 50 and 150. So no surprises, making sure that everyone is aligned, understand the complexity of decision making. So if something happened here, how did it affect other systems? And then the fourth category that we still have to approach is when a company becomes much bigger, they usually start new product verticals. So it kind of get back to first category when they hire a general manager who runs a product vertical, and then it's the same game over and over again. So these are three big categories of companies we work with. This is how we solve different problems for them. But the foundation is the same. It's making sure you have the right data in one place.
Yeah, I want to go back to you talked about interviewing, those top customers. Like, what does
Mhm.
that look like? Are you scheduling phone calls with them? Are you, just
Mhm.
sending out surveys? How are you getting that information?
We are starting with surveys. So the key idea is to collect as much of unstructured data as possible, meaning like, yes, there are certain questions when people answer yes, no, or they select certain options, but you want them to tell their story. Like, the survey allows you to talk to thousands of people, and it's great if you have them. It will be a great idea to talk to people on the phone, because again, their story could be unique, and that will actually fuel your imagination, fuel your creativity so much more. Again, by getting back to early days of Scentbird, we were chatting with our early customers, and I remember we were talking to a lady. She was a nurse, and like, she had this problem that like, if she was using the same fragrance over and over again, it will eventually give her migraine. So for her, ability to change fragrance on a monthly basis but do it cost effective was great, because she was in love with fragrances. Like, at other point, like, we had an older gentleman calling out customer support. And like after the issue was fixed, he was telling the story how he usually sits on his like porch somewhere in Montauk, and like in the evening he drinks wine and like discuss fragrances with his partner, things like that. So there is always an interesting story, these customers, and it won't hurt to spend 30, 40 minutes on the phone with few of your customers, especially a loyal one, to understand better why people chose you.
Do you ever I see this in my business. You tend to have maybe customers who buy less frequently but are bigger orders, and those who buy regularly but are smaller orders. Is there any strategic, I guess, viewpoint you would have towards serving those? And do you kind of view them as like two different top customers?
Yes, the frequency, like we recently were working with one of the customers who like they're selling flowers. So for them, we did this exercise. We analyzed what type of like how often do they buy, what kind of bouquet they buy, like what are the notes that they leave when they buy the bouquet. And like there are different groups. Like there are people who buy often for themselves because they want fresh flowers on their table every other week. There are people who use flowers to buy to their spouses, so the shipping and billing are the same, but the name is like the last name is the same, the first name is different, and they use it a way to engage in the better relationship. So these are different customers; they have different need, and ideally you need to understand this need and adjust your communication style and frequency based on this. Because, like I know a company, like they sell, like they're one of the biggest marketplaces that sells tires. They send me a text message and an email every day. Like I don't buy tires that often. I'm not a Formula One driver, sorry guys.
I mean, oh, what are they doing to send you messages every day? Like,
I believe they use Amazon simple like email service like that allows you to send these messages pretty cheap because
okay.
otherwise they will be the top attentive customer from spend perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, I don't know, they want to be top of mind, and maybe that's cheaper than like TV or something like that, for when you're ready.
Maybe, but like again, like if I don't open, like in many cases, like there are certain negative outcomes if you do communicate too often. Like the most obvious one is at some point they'll be just tired of this spam and they will cancel like both the SMS and the email. You also pay for all this extensive communication, but from email perspective, there's actually a negative side that at some point my Gmail will say I don't open these emails, and like from it will go from inbox to promotion, from promotion to spam, and on a big scale, it's a very bad thing.
I want to talk about, what your thoughts are, the strategies for e-commerce brands. You really have, in the space where you have a consumable product, you do have the
Hmm.
option to be a quote unquote subscription company, and you have the option to be a e-com company where you just sell the
Hmm.
products. And then of course there's companies that do both. What is obviously you guys are very competent in subscription. You might have biases towards that, but walk me
Hmm.
through like that decision to really lean into subscriptions versus this
Hmm.
mindset of more product based.
Sure. So first of all, yeah, there are certain products that are better for subscription, like consumables. I know supplements are the best example of that. Like if you sell luggages, like I don't know, like I don't know many people who buy a backpack on a monthly basis, so you might need a different strategy here. But um, let's say you're in a space you sell supplements, you sell some protein shakes, for example, or protein bars. You have to make a decision what kind of company you are. You either a subscription company or e-commerce company. Why it's important? Because that will dictate how do you structure your marketing. Because you'll have to pursue completely different metrics and performances. So if you're an e-commerce company, and we will leave the branding outside because it will only complicate things for now. Like your focus is to ensure that you are profitable with your first purchase. So your goal will be to sell a pack of protein bars, ideally like a bundle or something like this, right here, right now. So you cover your cost of acquisition, you cover your shipping, all this stuff. With subscription, and like your metric will be AOV to CAC or just AOV. With subscription, it's LTV to CAC and ideally predictive LTV to CAC. It means that you can allow yourself to lose money on the first purchase if you know that this customer will remain long enough that you'll be profitable at the end. It also means that you have to qualify customers pretty fast, what like will they stick for you or not, and that can actually drive your CAC up, and this is fine as long as this CAC allow you to attract people who stay longer, who have more money to spend with your product. So this is a completely different mind shift for the marketing people. Like that also defines the user experience on the website. Where do you drive traffic? I see people who are trying to send people like both directions. They like, so there's always add to cart, add to something, and it's just too complicated. Like focus on something, focus on one thing. And again, as you said, I'm biased. Like if you have subscribe and save option, that should be default option. Like yes, like unfortunately, people don't read. They're always in a rush. They will have complaints about people saying, "Hey, I didn't understand that I subscribe to this thing." So work on a better language. Work with customer support. Give them some options. Like figure out, because the beauty of subscription business is twofold. First of all, it's a predictable cash flow. And like once you have this cash flow for like model built out, you can actually budget out your entire organization finances and figure out, okay, when do I purchase what, how do I structure my payouts, things like that. This is very good for like planning your future. That's one. Second, unfortunately, cost of acquisition is not going anywhere. So the only way to play with this thing is to increase LTV. And it gives you more opportunity to do things in the future comparing to the urge of selling something right now in order to be profitable. So that's why, like, if you can do subscription, do subscription. If not, then you play a different game. Then you play the branding game. So, for example, the next day after the Austin conference, I was in Salt Lake City talking to a guy from Nomatic, and they said for them, none of the traditional marketing metrics also work because people buy from them once in 3 years, and obviously that's outside of the conversion window. So they have to invest in a good brand. They have to invest in a relationship. They have to be creative, and that's again a different marketing. Or like you sell luxury goods like Hermes or Birkenbeck, something like this, and that's again a different marketing game, branding game. So
Yeah, no,
that's my view of this.
yeah, and I really want to echo kind of like the intentionality that you should have as an operator for anyone who hasn't gone down this rabbit hole yet. The decisions you make not only in like the marketing but also your product
Oh
will
yeah.
factor into being a subscription company. Like for instance, my products, they last like 3 months and
Hmm.
people get a better deal from it. And there's, they can reorder through subscription, but Beard Brand is not a subscription company. We have the ability to subscribe, but at the end of the day, it's a kind of a product company. Whereas Scentbird, it's like you formulated these products and the design of the products to last 150, what do you say, 152 sprays,
Yeah.
which is 3 a day, or excuse me, 5 a day, and that gets you through the month. And it's like
Hmm.
everything is like tied into that. And then you also like set the expectation with your customer that you're subscribing. It's not this idea of like, hey, check out our products,
Hmm.
subscribe to save. It's like, hey, you're subscribing to this. This is a subscription business. And like, that's how we're built. And I think, it is very important to be intentional with those decisions
Oh
and
yeah.
also understand the trade-offs that come with it.
Hmm.
So it's like, do you feel like Scentbird gives up, like a retail play? Like you're not going to be able to be in a bunch of Sephora's with your own product, your own brand, and things like that, because you are subscription focused.
Yes, but it's in 2022, Scentbird acquired the subscription service out of Utah called Drift.co, the car freshener company. And this is a subscription company that sells either wooden or stone or metal car freshener. Perfect for subscription because also you want your car to smell great every month. But this product is already in retail, so you can find it in Target, you can find it in Walmart, and that's something else the subscription operator should keep in mind. I remember guys from Harry's, like another big player in shaving category, told us a year after they got into Target, the half of the revenue was coming from Target, something like this. So ideally, you need to like D2C is just a channel. Like there's a lot a lot back and forth. Is it the channel? Is it the strategy? Is it the only way to live? It's a good channel. You need to have D2C because shelf space is limited. You need to be able to connect better with your audience. But let's not forget that e-commerce is what? 12% of the overall retail market in the United States. So why miss this opportunity?
Yeah, and I think it's uh the other thing with like Scentbird is, you guys do subscription for other brands and other
Hmm.
products versus, like a Harry's was their own brand.
Their own product.
Uh, was that an intentional decision from the get-go, or did you originally start off with your own line of fragrances?
No, we originally started with someone else's fragrances. We actually obviously had a lot of back and forth communication with these brands. Some of them didn't like the idea right away, and like we had some discussion with them. We pulled some brands based on the request, but eventually we found that it's a win-win game for us and for the brand because it allows us to connect to younger audience, people who don't shop online, people who are not ready to invest into expensive perfume bottle, people who want to discover something before they buy a full bottle. Like at some point, our motto on the website was date your fragrance before you marry it. And it's important. And the fragrance is a chemistry. The same fragrance will smell differently on two different people. So if you like, some, like, I don't know, Creed smelling on someone, it's not necessarily to be smelling the same way what you use. Brand realized this, and that's what allowed us to build a mutual relationship with them. But also, it was we found a couple of interesting power plays here. So, for example, for people who the way House Invert works, you sign up and then you pre-select for each month going forward what kind of fragrance you want to get. But if you leave this queue empty, then you'll get the default option of the month. And eventually, a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people, were getting this fragrance, and that allowed us to collect a lot of reviews quite away. So for brands who wanted to get feedback for their new fragrance early, that was a great opportunity to test new fragrance, get the customer feedback, maybe get a new creative marketing copy for it based on what people are saying, or maybe iterate on the formula and then launch it in full scale. So we found what works for everyone in this economy.
It's knock on wood, hopefully Beard Brand finds a way to collaborate with Scentbird. What y'all have built is absolutely incredible. If not, it's an inspiration for other entrepreneurs to build something that you've done. And it's also an inspiration to see how you're able to leverage what you've done at Scentbird and help apply that to other subscription companies and help level up, lower churn, and improve businesses. Where can people follow you, reach out to you, hire your servers?
So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So just find me Andrei Rebrov at LinkedIn. I have a little rocket emoji. That's how I differentiate myself from other Andres over there. My email is andre@finzi.ai, and we have, I believe, a pretty amazing website, finzi.ai. If people want to talk all things subscriptions, I'm pretty open for the conversation. Since I've been in the operator chair myself, I love helping other people to figure out stuff. Yeah, so if anyone has questions about subscription and how to start them, how to scale them, how to fix them, feel free to reach out.
And that's a FINSI, Vinci.
Correct. Yes.
And yeah, incredibly helpful guy, incredibly knowledgeable. Take him up on that offer.
Thank
He's
you.
been very generous with his time for me. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope our listeners have enjoyed this as much as I have. Cheers. Keep on growing.
Thank you.
Stop.